Get out the way. Who got a watch? Who got the time? I'm raising the clock. Even in my feelings, grind don't stop. Got big.
Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Mature Allure.
Thank you so much for having me here today. Y hola.
Hola. Everyone, we have Sarah Bajc with us. She is the owner of a boutique eco resort in Panama. Sarah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've had a lot of different turns getting me here to my alluring mature state of being an eco resort owner. But it was actually pretty intentional. So I had a 22-year career as a business executive, most of which was spent in international settings. So I did a lot of travel. And I was actually originally raised in a very rural part of Michigan. So I like being in the woods. I like camping and all of those kinds of things. So when I was looking for my next path in life, my kids were getting older and I was tired of the heavy travel and the stress of a high-powered job. I went back to school to become a teacher, and I taught for 10 years in the international school community and then got to travel even more. So I've lived in 6 countries. I've traveled to 60 countries. And all that time, I've always loved beaches, I've loved woods, and I've always sought out those opportunities for my own travel. So from the time my kids were little tiny, I've been dragging them on eco-style trips. We've done backpacking, we've done camping, we went 6 weeks through Asia together when they were in their early teens. And I just really said that's kind of what I want to do next. So when I was making my last decision as a teacher, so I looked for my last position, I had been in China and in Malaysia. So I was a little tired of Asia, ready to come back closer. And I've always really appreciated the Latin culture. I like salsa dancing and the Latin culture of warmth and just
Laid back. Little laid back.
Laid back, but more it's about the joy of life. Like there are very few cultures that I've lived in that go down to the basic level and just enjoy life in the same way that the Latin cultures do, and especially here in Panama. So I'd narrowed it down to Costa Rica and Panama because they're really good places to be a business person. You can own land, the legal setup is correct, the financial banking systems are stable. And I got a job at the International School of Panama here. So that was like the deal maker. And so I came here with the idea to work my contract out and then make the transition to finding property that I could turn into either a resort or Airbnb. So that was kind of the backstory to getting here. And then, my first month here, I ended up meeting a Panamanian man. His name is Ernesto. And he had a camping eco resort up in the mountains. So, I kind of like walked immediately in to the same life that I already really enjoyed and into a Panamanian family. And from there, it just kind of took off. I wasn't interested in the mountains personally, and he was quite interested in beach property too. So we shifted away from the mountain model and found this property here on the coast and started the business up about 2 years ago now. We've been working on it.
But you know what? It's kind of interesting how you said you were making these plans and moving in the direction of the plans of what you wanted. And then unexpectedly, here he comes and kind of added to what you were already envisioning and kind of working through and working on making happen. So tell us a little bit about the resort. I mean, you explained why Panama, but tell us a little bit about the resort and what a boutique eco resort actually is.
So we make our own opportunity, right? And I'm a very big believer in leading an intentional life. Like we don't always know exactly where we're going, but as long as we're taking steps that get us into the direction that we want to be in, I think that's really the critical piece. And so I knew I wanted to be in the Latin culture. Okay, I got myself here. And then I knew I wanted to find another relationship because I had been single for quite a long time. And so I opened myself up to the idea of meeting somebody, and I did. And then I wanted to be in nature and to be able to kind of give back to the world around me a little bit. And so I intentionally looked for land that was off grid, right? So in an area of the country that wasn't already filled with high-rise hotels. And so we started a path. Ernesto and I traveled around the country in a 4x4, truck, and on weekends, right? And scoped out different areas, camping and talking to the locals. And in Panama, there's no MLS system for real estate. You have to know somebody. You have to physically go places and meet people. It's very rudimentary in a lot of ways if you're outside of the cities. And so we took all those active steps to come here and had toured about 30 properties over about a year period of time. And when the boat pulled up to this particular beach cove, which they call Camarónsito, which means little shrimp, because it looks, the shape of the beach cove is like a shrimp. And it's right next to a bigger beach cove that is called the Big Shrimp. So you've got the big shrimp and the little shrimp. And so we just kept the name, and that's why we call it Camarónsito. But that's how we got here. We pulled in, and it just felt right. It felt like home, and we ended up camping here with the permission of the owner to get a feel for the place and what it, we could go through the woods. It's rainforest here. So we came with our machetes and, everything prepared. And it was, we bought it within probably 2 months.
Wow. And so with that, once you bought it within 2 months, how long did it take you to kind of get everything ready? Because you said it's kind of rainforest. Do you have areas that you have remained kind of the rainforest, and then you have the area that is you've kind of cleared out, or what was it like? What did you have to do?
So we actually bought it like 6 years ago. So it's been a long process because I was still working as a teacher. I actually worked 6 years as a teacher. And one of the nice things about international teaching is you get 14 weeks of paid vacation every year. So all of that time, other than going home to visit my kids in the United States, all of that time was spent here. And so we would come for a week at a time, 2 weeks at a time, and slowly started to develop the land in a way, like we didn't cut down any major trees. We planned the way to set the property up in such a way that we preserved about 2/3 of the property is still completely dense virgin rainforest. You can't even walk through it without cutting with a machete. And then about 1/3 of it, what they call light clearing. So you pull out the underbrush and the junk trees, but you leave all the big canopy trees. So it opens it up so you can grow food and build buildings and things like that. So we've been very, very cautious about it. But we did it mostly using local labor. There is no road access for within 30 kilometers away is the nearest access to road or electricity or cell service. So we literally transfer here by boat, and we've gotten to know all the local fishing communities and subsistence farmers. The people live here like they did 200 years ago in many parts of the world. They literally live completely off-grid without any municipal services at all. They cook on wood-burning fires, many of them still. So there's a couple of them who have a little bit more sophistication and might have propane gas stove, but nobody has indoor plumbing, as an example, because this is off-grid. There's no municipal services, right? So it took a lot to figure out how to build stuff up, and a lot of very physical manual work. I've got great arms to show for my machete wielding. But we just did it over time. And a year and a half ago, I guess, we actually started building the resort. So we had the land prepared. And my husband Actually, that's what he did in the city. Is he built and remodeled small homes, so he has that skill set. So I did all the design work and all the business model planning and helping, and he did all the construction, and then I do the website and financial work. So it's been a real act of love to get to this point now. We opened in January of this year, so we're still pretty new.
Yeah. Well, so do you have specific programs? Like if somebody's interested in coming to the resort, because again, like you said, there's no running water and no electricity. Do you have specific activities for people? So when they come, you kind of show them around and what there is to do, or what do you suggest when you book guests?
Well, we streamline the whole process for people, and it is not so rough here. So we have full solar power. So we have 4 beachfront cabanas, plus a big social area and restaurant and bar. And then we have our permanent home, which is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. And all the buildings have individual solar systems. So we have a refrigerator with an ice maker and a washer and dryer, industrial size washer and dryer, and all the comforts of being on grid, just because we've designed it properly. So we have our own water system, our own water sterilization system. Over the years, we planted a big food forest, so we produce enough plantains and bananas and yucca and pineapples to feed not only ourselves and our guests, but we give a lot of the food away because we produce more than we can consume. And we buy from the local communities the chickens they raise and the fish they catch. So a lot of it is locally sourced. And we go back to the city once a month to stock up on things that we can't get locally, like good red wine and
you have to have that.
And whiskey for the bar. Yeah. And, and Kalamata olives and cheeses, things that a high quality restaurant is going to have, because we pride ourselves on a pretty high level of culinary creativity. But we turnkey everything. So the customer doesn't have to know anything. They just show up to the airport and we pick them up at the airport. And we give them a tour through Panama. They get to see the Panama Canal and cross the bridge and do a little sightseeing along the way. And then when they arrive here, they have their private cabana with solar power and a refrigerator and a coffee service, and a fully stocked mini bar and hot water shower. I mean, it's really very comfortable, but you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it is literally, we are in the middle of a rainforest on a completely deserted Caribbean beach. And so it's a real dichotomy of things, but it's what I used to seek out as a traveler. So when I was traveling, I wanted to find those places where I could be away from the world, but still be comfortable.
Yeah. It's a great, unique experience. It sounds like, if you travel a lot, but you travel to places, like you said, this is kind of a way set away from everything. If you want a real vacation that you're away from it all, this sounds like the type of vacation someone should take.
Well, we hope so. It's what I personally like. And the guests who have been finding us are seeking that. So, I mean, that's actually the feedback. Of course, as a good business owner, I say, how did you find me? And we don't do any paid advertising. We're not listed on booking.com or any of those places because we're a pretty unique niche place. And the individuals who are seeking an eco resort and are seeking rainforest experience and deserted beaches are actively looking for those things. So it's not that hard to surface on the first page with organic search because I'm a pretty unique business. And there's only a few that are similar to us in Panama, and none of them are close. So, there's one on the Pacific coast, and there's one in the mountains, and then we're on the Caribbean coast. So, so finding a guest is more about having it be available, because it's that mix, because the people who can afford the kind of travel required to come here also expect really good food, and they expect quality service. And our sheets are 400 count cotton. Okay. So, I mean, it's like that kind of comfort, but yet
Yeah.
it's the kind of place you never put shoes on. Like you just walk around barefoot all the time, unless if you're going to go into the rainforest for a hike or take a horseback ride, and then you need boots.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of a difference, and it's the opposite direction from a lot of what's happening in society, where everybody's become so polished and so plastic and so artificial at everything. We've tried to take it the opposite way and try to be as authentic as possible.
So what are the pros and challenges of running a boutique eco resort?
The pro is I get to live here. I mean, it's beautiful. And I personally like the rainforest. So like, because it's a rainforest, we have rain almost every day, but it doesn't last all day. Like it seldom rains all day. So I have a brother who lives in Seattle, and he's like, Sarah, it rains all day, every day here for months at a time, and we never see the sun. But here, I see the sun every single day for at least a couple of hours. So it kind of depends on the time of year. We have a drier season and a wetter season, but it's just lovely to live here. You know, it's always 75 to 80 degrees, always, all year long. Like, it doesn't get hot. Like when you guys are having those terrible heat waves in the States where it's chopping. Yeah. It's 85 degrees here. It's just beautiful. Yeah.
It's almost 100 right now.
So people ask if we have air conditioning. I'm like, you don't need air conditioning here. Like we have fans, but there's always a breeze. Okay, so the positive, I get to live here. And my husband and I are actually really happy being able to have a farm here. We've got horses and we grow food. And so we have that piece of our life. But then we also get to host really super cool people, because the type of guests that is attracted to come here tends to be a pretty interesting person too. Yeah. So, you know, everybody's a little different. Some people want to be very quiet and have a lot of solitude and maybe do a lot of bird watching. And other people want to learn how to salsa dance and drink around the bonfire until midnight. Right. So it's a big swing, but we have fun being able to host people because we're both pretty social people too. And we're very small. So we only can host up to like 12 people at a time. So it's much more like visiting. Yeah, it's much more like visiting a family member or good friends than it is going to a hotel. Very personal, very small. Downside is we are in the middle of nowhere. So in order to go into the city to get supplies, you know, I'm on a boat for 45 minutes. And, you know, that gets expensive. And it's also just kind of inconvenient. And my almost 60-year-old hips are not always so pleased with having to bounce up and down if the weather is rough. But we've been investing a lot in our local community, and we've been driving an initiative to build a road here for the last 2 years. And we got the first round of cutting done, and we're helping to raise money to put creosote down on it and build some bridges so that we should be able to come back and forth in a 4x4. We hope within another year or so.
Nice. Nice. So for someone who might be interested in doing something like this, starting a boutique hotel or an Airbnb or not an Airbnb, I'm sorry, a bed and breakfast. Somebody that might be interested in starting like a vacation type resort area. What is some advice that you have for them?
Well, first of all, you've got to love that kind of work. Like if you don't love taking care of people and solving problems for them, like, you know, we had one set of guests, their luggage got lost. You know, so here this guy shows up, he has only the clothes on his back. So, and we're in the middle of nowhere. It's not like he can go out to a store someplace. Yeah. So you have to resolve problems for people. So fortunately, he could fit into my husband's clothes. And so we literally threw a bunch of stuff freshly into the washer for him so it would be nice and freshly washed. And he used Ernesto's clothes while he was here for 5 days. Wow. And you have to want to work. If you're going to be in tourism, you have to want to take care of people and make them happy. So like I love to cook. There are a few things that delight my soul more than seeing people love the food I've made for them. Like it just touches me inside. in a very special place. It's a my language of love, right?
Yeah.
Is being able to cook for people and provide them experiences. So that's the first advice: is don't go into a business that you're not going to love every day, because it's hard work, and if you don't really love it, the shine will wear off really quickly. The second advice is something everybody says, but nobody listens to, is that you have to prepare to fail and recover and fail and recover at least a couple times. So have plenty of bandwidth in terms of finance and resources at bay, because if you throw everything in to just trying to get the doors open and then the bank account is empty, the reality is no business starts right away. Doesn't matter how good you are. Doesn't matter how many 5-star reviews you have. It will still take a long time. So just be patient with yourself and plan on it. So fortunately, I had some entrepreneurial experience in my past, and I have several friends who've opened tourism businesses. So even though it was new to me, I kind of knew what to expect. And like, we made a financial plan that we would be fine if we had 0 guests for an entire year. Right? That kind of runway is really what you need. And so if you're not prepared for that, then maybe you're not ready to start your own business, because it's not as easy as it might look on the outside. Yeah.
Or as glamorous. I mean, you think of it, because like when I think of this, I'm like, oh, ooh, this is so amazing, and how nice, how awesome. And a lot of the things that you've mentioned, I hadn't even thought about. Just being so isolated, just having to, like you said, take care of everyone that's there, and the food, and getting people out there, getting food out there, making sure they're comfortable. I mean, and also maintaining a place in the middle of the rainforest. I mean, I would think that takes some effort too.
It does, but we have really good workers. So because we've been coming here for 6 years. So we have a very positive relationship with the local fishing villages. And over time, we've trained our workers. So we have 2 like full-time dedicated workers, plus another dozen or so that we can bring in for project style work, like to put a new building together or to do a round of beach cleanup. When there's a big storm, garbage washes up.
Yeah.
Right? Comes from the ocean. We don't generate it because there's no people here. But then it takes, a lot of people to come through and pull it all off and keep it clean, because we pride ourselves on this being a really pristine nature experience. But, so part of the investment about being a business owner too is it's not just about satisfying customers, it's also about caring for the community around you. So, we've invested in helping to improve the school. Of course, I'm a former teacher. So we've donated not only money, but also I arranged for my former school, which is a school that caters to wealthy people, to donate school supply, like old school supplies, all the lost and found items, books that the library is giving away. So we bring boxes of love to the school here. Every year we get a set of donations that we can bring through, and it's more than the school had ever in their history. To support the students. To do that, we helped with the road building. My husband helped to put in an aqueduct system that brings water into the city, into the pueblo, instead of them having to pull it in buckets from the river. So, we've really invested in the community around us as well, which doesn't generate any revenues, but it does create an awful lot of goodwill, and it feels good. Like you can say, I'm really helping other people to have a better life. And, when one of my core workers says, my daughter has decided to go into, originally she wanted to just go to business, because she's actually putting her youngest through college using the income that we supply.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So she's got these 3 daughters. And her daughter actually has decided that instead of just business, she wants to go in the local university in the city of Panama, started a new program for sustainable tourism.
Oh,
And so
nice.
she's actually decided that that's what she wants to do. And she wants to come and be able to do her internships with us. And, that feels good because you become
Yeah.
a family with people. It's not just a business, it's a
Yeah.
family as well. And that's also advice to somebody wanting to start a business. I'm sure you've experienced it in your own enterprise, is that
Hmm.
you, it's all the people around you and how you live your life. It's all together. It's not like you just go to a job and clock in and then leave your job and come back. Your profession becomes your life as well. And
Yeah.
so if you're not intentional about that, you can find yourself either resenting it or you can find yourself overwhelmed pretty easily, because you do have to put a few lines in. I'm so sorry. Where's my dog? Penny, no man.
That's okay.
So we've had quite a few strays find us here. I think they talk to each other and say, hey, she feeds you if you show up there.
Uh-huh.
So we've got quite a few dogs that roll through here. This one happens to be ours. She's asking for her dinner and she's 2 hours early. So I apologize for the bark.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so sorry. I think I answered your question.
You did. You did. What is it that you personally love about living there? But not about the business, but what is it that you personally enjoy?
Part of it is that I love the beach and the rainforest. So I love the solitude. Like, I walk on the beach almost every afternoon. It doesn't matter if it's raining or sunny. I just love it. It doesn't have to even be for a long time, maybe only 15, 20 minutes. In my office where I'm sitting now and overlooking the rainforest behind me, I watch birds all day long. Like, there are toucans here. The things that you see that are theoretically tropical that are on pictures, well, they live here. And like, out of my window, I'll be like, there's the toucans back. Like, we've got a fan. They must be nesting nearby because these two come through all the time now. And there's monkeys that come more and more because they've realized, wow, they grow lots of extra fruit and food there, more than normal in the rainforest. We've got banana trees and like endless coconuts, but all sorts of different fruit trees, mango trees, avocado. And we grow enough partly to let the animals come and steal them, because like, that brings the animal life in, which we want for the resort. And just because it's super cool to be sitting and drinking your coffee and look up and there's capuchin monkeys jumping from tree to tree and chattering at you.
That sounds cool and scary at the same time. So.
Oh, no, there's nothing scary about it. There's nothing dangerous in these. This rainforest here, the biggest critters are what they call cats. They're like a big weasel, basically, but they would be of no danger to a human at all.
So what advice would you give someone? Because this sounds like a dream life to me. It sounds like a dream. It's work, of course, everything is. But what advice would you give someone who has a dream, whether it's entrepreneurial, lifestyle, relationship, that they hope to become or make a reality? What advice would you give them on making that possible?
So besides the practical planning of saving up, because you need capital, and building your network, so have that network of people that you can depend on for moral support, for advice, your peer group. We can't always pay professionals for everything. There's a lot to be said about having your support system put in place. So that's part of it. The other part is to do a lot of real hands-on research. I mean, things don't just happen on their own. You have to learn. So, like, I'm a huge YouTube fan. That's how I found you, was on YouTube. I was looking around and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now I know it's mostly a podcast, but I found you on YouTube. Because
it is.
Yeah, because I learn a lot from YouTube. You have to be willing to say, I'm stupid. I must learn this from scratch. Or not stupid, but I'm ignorant about this topic. I must learn from scratch. And
Yeah.
be willing to be the student again, even at a riper age. You still have to be willing to be a newbie in trying out new things.
And that's actually, I think, a good thing. Like you said, you have to be willing. And I think people are becoming more and more willing. Like years and years ago, it almost seemed like people were set in their ways. It's like you reached a certain age, this is what you do. You retire, you do this, you sit, you grow old, maybe gracefully. But now it's like YouTube is there, like you said, as a resource. I've always wanted to do this. I'd like to try to do that. I'd like to learn how to make this or make that. Why can't you? There's nothing stopping you but you, you know?
It's all about mindset. And, that comes into another piece of advice, especially for more mature men and women, but especially for women, is that we're going to live a long time.
Yeah.
Like from the genetics in my family and my current health level, it's very likely I'm going to live to 90.
Mm-hmm.
And of all the people who I know who are maybe the generation above me, who are maybe in their 70s, who retired, not all of them, but many of them are quite unhappy because they spent their whole life working and not really doing a whole lot of playing, or maybe not even having a whole lot of real hobbies because they were so busy working. And then all of a sudden they retire and it's like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Right. So at least, especially for women in their 50s and 60s, I think as you're making decisions about where you're going to go next, those decisions have to assume that it's something you can continue to do into an older age. So that was actually part of our strategy here. So we built our home on purpose to allow, for instance, if you need to use a walker, like the doorways are all expanded. I know that sounds kind of crazy for somebody who's not quite 60 yet, but you have to build that in. And there's a running joke amongst my group of girlfriends is that once I can't do the work myself anymore, because now I really like doing the cooking and guest care, but when I can't do it anymore, I'll bring in a couple extra people, bring in a physical therapist if I need to, bring in a nurse if I need to, and then all this group of super cool people can all come and grow old here, and we'll transition the beach resort into being an old farts farm. That's kind of what we call it. But really, there's a lot to be said about thinking in advance. How can I transition this business into something that will support me and allow me to keep an interesting and challenging lifestyle beyond my physical labor work years?
Yeah. And that's very important because when you said that people are living longer, they really are. I used to work in the insurance industry and we talked about how there's more people over 100 now than there ever have been. And, you just have to start preparing for just being around. Even if you have an ailment or illness, there are medicines out here now that are just keeping you alive. You know what I mean? So yeah, I had not thought about making the preparations to move into that old age.
Yes, to see like what you're doing. You can keep doing this or some variation of this. You can change the flavor. Yep. You can change the setting. Maybe in the next generation, you're going to be doing it with 3D holographic models and sitting with people, in a who knows, right? With the way technology is moving.
Yeah.
But you've set a career for yourself or a professional path that will be flexible for you as you choose to do other things with your life, either for physical reasons or for just interest. And so, I think setting yourself up to have steps that can be sensible doesn't mean you have to plan for that. I haven't hired a nurse yet, but I tried to take into consideration in the design of the buildings and even of the cabanas, how would we transition this into a place where older people could come? In fact, I talked to a woman the other day who specializes in travel. I am so sorry. Penny, no ma'am, just a second. She specializes in travel support for people with disabilities. and she helps them to identify places to go. And disabilities can mean somebody who's got a bad hip and can't handle stairs anymore, right? So, we took that into consideration in how we built our facility, that right now it's all sand paths, because right now you come here to be at a sandy beach resort. You never have to put shoes on. But at a later stage, if I want to keep running this business and I'm getting older and need physical support, well, I can transition my business into attracting more guests like me. Yeah. And who says you have to go to an old folks home, right? So,
who says that?
Yeah, so my mother happens to be in assisted care at this point because she has enough degradation in her mental capacity because of Alzheimer's that she can't care for herself anymore. But there's an awful lot of people that end up in institutionalized care because there's not another path for them. So, yeah. So who says our generation can't think a little differently about them and say, I don't want to go to a facility, but if I want to be independent, that also doesn't mean being isolated in my house and just having a nurse care for me. Maybe I create an environment for myself where I can invite other people who share some of my same interests and lifestyle needs to come and share my environment and bring in medical support systems or whatever. I mean, it's just ideas. But that's part of the fun, right? Is thinking about all of the options that could be available.
Exactly. So let's talk about your connection to the earth. I heard you say you have horses and things like that. Tell us what makes it so strong. Why do you feel you have such a strong connection to the earth?
Part of it might just be my upbringing. So I grew up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where there are way more deer than there are people. And I grew up with absent parents. But both of my parents have some mental illness issues. And so we as kids were pretty self-sufficient. Like, we took ourselves into the wood with packed peanut butter sandwiches for the day and literally were at a catered park, but like real forest.
Like the real forest.
Real forest. Yeah. And I grew up that way. So like I could build a fire with wet wood before I was 10. And I know how to fish and skin a rabbit, and all those kind of practical life skills, like wilderness survival skills. And so I grew up with that, and I crave that. So as an adult, even when I was a executive in the tech industry, I still took my kids camping on the weekends because it just feels right to me to stay connected to the ground. And I've always gardened, like I've always grown my own food, at least a little bit, even if it's just planter with tomatoes and herbs. And I think our society has maybe lost track of that a little bit. And even though from a practical setting, still most people in order for the earth to support everybody, people do need to be centralized in city states. I mean, city environments. The urban environment is far more efficient. There's not enough land for everybody to live like I live, right? We have 16 acres here. But if we preserve these wild spaces and allow other people to come and experience them, then you can have the best of both worlds. You can dwell in the city where it's efficient for society, and you can have the lifestyle you want, but you can also still come to wild areas. And so for me, it's really important. Like, I have no interest in living in a concrete city again. I spent quite a few years living in high-rise apartments. Like in Beijing, China, I was up on the top floor and there was concrete as far as you could see. But there's something really special about sleeping to the sounds of the wilderness, birds.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, I mean, even when you mentioned having toucans, and it's like, I can't even imagine that right now. Like, it sounds beautiful. You know what I mean? To just kind of be sitting there and like, yeah, you're never going to find that in the city. That's for sure. So, I was going to ask you what it's like to live your dream. What is it like for you?
So on the one hand, it's just super cool because for all of my adult life, people have been listening to me say, I'm going to start when I have my resort or when I have my bed and breakfast. I've been talking that for 30 years. Okay. So it's not like it was a new idea. But so not only have I gotten here, but I got here with a man who I love, who loves me. And I never thought that I'd have that either. You know, after having gone through like a really long marriage and then a not so nice divorce, and then I lost another person who was really important to me. And I kind of thought, okay, you know, I'm in my early 50s now. I'm okay being single. Like, that's fine. Yeah. I'm happy with myself. I've got lovely children and lovely friends. And then I just decided, well, at least I can have some fun. Like, let me find somebody I can go out dancing with, or, you know, get to know the Panamanian culture a little bit more, you know, get my Spanish down. Right. Yeah. So I opened myself up to that idea, and boom, there he comes. So, and we just have really a lot of fun together. And, you know, being in a relationship or being single, I think both can have their positives and their negatives. But if you can have both together, like he's my buddy and my friend and my playmate, even though I wasn't looking for him, he came in, and it just makes life that much richer. So both of those sides of my dream are there, and my kids are independent and healthy and happy. And honestly, I'm not sure that there's much more that you can aspire to as a human than having raised productive, healthy, happy people to take on that next level. So yeah, I feel very, very blessed, very fortunate to be where I am. Although, you know, not every day is easy, right? It's hard. It's hard living here.
Life. Yeah.
But it's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
Like, time flies. I never get bored, ever.
And that's the thing. If you're going to have days that aren't going to be easy, they might as well be easy within your dream life. I mean, not easy within your dream life, you know, versus having them not be easy. And it's like, I hate what I'm doing. I hate how I'm living. I hate this. You know, not that you want to use those words. You always want to try and find the positives. But yeah, I agree.
But even when you find your dream life, there's no such thing, really. Like, every circumstance has its challenges. And, you know, living at the beach sounds really cool. But guess what? It means it's always humid. So, like, you can't have leather anything. Because what does leather do? It molds.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's even the case in Atlanta, right? If you have a pair of leather shoes and you leave them in your car for a month in the trunk and you forget about them, they're going to be all moldy because of the humidity. So, and everything has this trade-off.
And you know what's interesting? I guess, is your internet still on? Because your picture went out. Your video went out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can still see you.
That's okay, because really what I wanted you to do was to let people know how they can reach out to you for inspiration, to come book a vacation, a destination vacation stay with you guys. How can someone get in contact with you?
Well, we have a website, so Camarónsito.net. And we have a lot of information on there, a lot of photographs, videos. All of them we take ourselves. We did not hire a professional photographer, so they aren't always the perfect quality, but you know they're genuine. And we have social media as well. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. If we got it, if it exists, we pretty well started it. And then if somebody's interested in having an experience.
No, go ahead. You went out a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you have the video back, or is the video still off?
The video's back now.
Okay, because I've been able to see you the whole time. But it is, so we have a Starlink satellite system, which is really fast and speedy. But when it rains, like there's a rain system that's going through at this moment, it choppies up a little bit. But it's fast enough that we can have people who come here as digital nomads. We had a woman come from Mexico. She actually was here for 2 whole months working, like literally working as a programmer from working on the beach. Okay, so here's the source of the noise here. This is Penny. I'm sorry. She wants my attention. She doesn't often get ignored as much as I've ignored her in this last hour. I'm sorry, spoiled children.
Okay. And she's like, I don't understand. Why aren't you talking to me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm so sorry. Okay, so it has been totally lovely getting to meet you, Sherri. I've enjoyed your podcast, and I really like the topics that you've picked. You've been wonderful about showing how mature women can lead a more fulfilling life, including by rounding themselves out with different experiences, be that fashion or wine or kind of personal self-help and self-development. You had a doctor on or a counselor on, I think, for 2 different sessions, and I found that to be really valuable.
And
so
it's funny because you're more than welcome. I enjoy it. It's funny because I had someone on earlier that will be coming up soon, be uploading the episode soon, on dating. And she mentioned some of the same things you said about opening yourself up, putting yourself out there. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And thank you very much for being a guest. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and on that dating subject and being authentic.
Yeah.
One of the problems with technology is it allows us to put a mask on really easily in a way that you can't have in person. And that's dangerous because if you use a fake mask to attract somebody, then that's the person they're being attracted to, not who you really are.
Yeah.
So not only for dating, I mean, I think that's for everything. That's authenticity in who we are. So whether it's how you run your resort or how you run your podcast, it's about your own personality and how you choose to package who you are with what you bring to your clients or to your friends or to your listeners.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, Sarah, I thank you for taking the time from your rainforest. One day I'll have to get there. I don't know when. That would be so nice. I would love to see it. So again, thank you. And I hope that you have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mature Allure. For more information about us, visit matureallure.net and get social with us on Instagram and YouTube at mature.allure, Facebook at @4matureallure, and Twitter at mature_allure. Till next time, we encourage you to stay positive, embrace who you are at every stage of your life, and always tap into your mature allure.